There were reports that the president of Ghana had been traveling on a jet that is not Ghana's presidential jet. So the foreign minister came to clarify and said the president had been traveling on presidential jets of other world leaders because he's well sought after around the world. But that is not the response the foreign minister think it is. It's actually him responding to the risk Ghana's president is putting himself into by traveling around the world. And let me explain. On April 6, 1994, the president of Burundi at the time was on a plane with the president of Rwanda. The plane was getting ready to land in Kigali, Rwanda, and the plane was gunned down by rebels who were targeting the president of Rwanda. So the president of Burundi was an accidental victim of an attack on the president of Rwanda. Fast forward to November 24th, 2015. A Russian military jet was flying through Syria. Syria happens to share border with Turkey. So the jet went into the Turkey airspace for 17 seconds and it was gunned down. No time to find out what the Russians are trying to do. 17 seconds and it was gunned down. All right. I'm saying all this to say, anytime the president of Ghana enters the air jet of another country's president, he's assuming the security risk that comes with being the president of whichever country's jet he is getting into. And that is a huge national security issue we need to address as a country. My name is Nenebi Tony. I'm a Ghanaian writer who lives in the US. On this channel, I talk about geopolitics and trade from the perspective of an African. And so, if you like intellectual conversations, subscribe to this channel. Now, why is the security of the president very important? Let's start with the Constitution. The 1992 Constitution says the president of Ghana is the head of state, head of government, and the commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces. Those are three very distinct roles. In Israel, they have a head of state who is the president, head of government who is the prime minister, and then the commander-in-chief who is the minister of defense. So three different people play these three different roles in Israel. In Germany, the same. They have the chancellor who is the head of government, the president who is the head of state, and the minister of defense, in this case, is also the commander-in-chief. But in wartime, the chancellor takes over from the minister of defense. Why? Because those are three very big roles that a single person can handle. But in Ghana, we trust that our president is man enough to handle these three different roles by surrounding himself with, more experts. So whenever the president of Ghana is traveling around the world, he is traveling as three people in one. You understand? Let me not bring up something sad, but I can't do this without doing that. On August 6, when two ministers of Ghana got on a Ghana Air Force helicopter, the helicopter got in an accident, we lost two leaders at the same time. If anything happens to the president of Ghana, which I'm praying it doesn't, we will lose three leaders at the same time. And which is why we don't treat the president that he's just another citizen or he's just another, leader. He is the president of Ghana. I know we like to say we are all equal before the law, but equality is a concept that applies to class. When we say we are all equal before the law, what it means is that me, my mother, my father, and everybody in Ghana are equal before the law. Equality to the president is different. When you say the president is equal before the law, what it means is that President Mahama, President Rawlings, President Kufuor, President Akufo-Addo are all equal before the law. The way we treat Mahama is the same way we are supposed to treat Akufo-Addo in the eyes of the law. You understand? Good. So we need to stop treating the president like he's just another person. He is an important representation of the ideal of Ghana. He the man. He represents the ideal of Ghana. And so the continuity of our presidency is very important. And Ghana have demonstrated that we are able to have continuity, because when President Atamils, may he so rest in peace, died in office, Mahama took over the same day and the government continued. There are ways that countries take to even go further in terms of continuity. And in the US, for example, whenever the president of the US, his cabinet are going to be in the same place, let's say State of the Nation address, what happens is one person in the cabinet, one cabinet member, they call them secretary, call them minister, doesn't go. He goes into hiding in a secure bunker, because if, say, something happens and the US Capitol gets attacked when the president is giving the State of the Nation address and the government is dismantled, the person who is in bunker will assume the role of the president. Why? When we are talking about security, we are talking about worst case scenario. We know in Ghana, we like to say we don't say bad things so that bad things don't happen. No. It doesn't matter whether you say bad things or not. Bad things can happen. Today, President Mahama said it himself that there are global shocks that can affect the economy of Ghana, right? And if you are the president of any country, you don't go about wondering if something bad will happen. You go about wondering when something bad will happen and if you are prepared for it. You understand? So security is about precaution. Now, so I gave you the US example. I'll go even further. You know, the fourth most powerful person in the US is the Secretary of State, who in Ghana will be the foreign minister. So when the president is not there, we have the vice. When the vice is not there, we have the Speaker of Parliament. They call it the Speaker of the House. When the Speaker of the House is not there, the Secretary of State. In 2015, I believe, when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, I believe it was before 2015, when Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State, she was out of the US on a trip when Obama was about to give the State of the Nation address. They still put the Secretary of Agriculture at the time in the bunker, even though if something should happen to Obama, Hillary Clinton is the next in line. The reason why they put the Secretary of Agriculture in the bunker is because the whole world knows where Hillary Clinton is. That is how much they take precaution when it comes to security. Now, that is why it is important that we care about the security of the president. How has this got to do with the plane situation? Whenever the president of Ghana is on a plane, that plane becomes his office. Remember one time President Mills told us that even though he was out of Ghana, he was working on behalf of Ghana, which is true, because he can work from anywhere. So when the president is on the plane, he is working, even if he's sleeping for how many hours. So when the president is working on a plane, everything he says is supposed to be classified unless it is meant to be for the public. But when the president is traveling on another country's plane, can he keep his conversations classified? We lose sovereign control over the communications of our president whenever we allow him to get into the aircraft of another country's president. And we expose our country's intelligence to the whims or the trustworthiness of that country. Of course, we know that people like Mahama around the world, which is true. We know that whichever country is giving Mahama the aircraft to travel on is trying to buy Mahama's love, so they will not do anything to harm Mahama. That is true. But I gave you the example of Burundi and Russia. Those were mistakes. It can happen to Mahama. We hope he doesn't. And another example that I can give you is the issue of intelligence. I've done at least 2 videos on espionage. When China built the AU office for us, they backed the AU office so that they can know what AU is discussing. Do you think that whoever is giving Mahama the, what's the name, their presidential jet or their private jet to travel on, doesn't have interest in bagging it so that Mahama's communication will be, exposed to them? All these are security risks that we need to think about, which is why Ghana needs a presidential aircraft that is modern and secure. I know the NDC is trying to avoid the conversation of presidential jets because of how much they played politics with it under President Akufo-Addo. That is why the Foreign Minister Honorable Kudeto Ablakwa came out to say that he's not chartering private jets, he's borrowing other countries' private jets like it's better. No. And no, politics is politics. But don't let politics get in the way of progress. The president of Ghana has been leading the charge on security in Africa. He needs to be secure himself. We can't let the president travel around without proper security, including in his aircraft, if we want to be seen as a country that takes security serious. I don't care if we lose $2 billion of our forest reserve to secure Ghana's airspace. And by secure Ghana's airspace, I mean something like getting 2 presidential jets, not in the name of the president. Let's say we get 2 presidential level jets for the Ghana Air Force together with modern helicopters and other modern, fighter jets. We need those things. Ghana Air Force is very under-resourced. On August 6th, when we lost the president, Amani Ghana did a study, and then they came out to find that the Ghana Air Force is under-resourced and underfunded, and we need to do better. We can include the presidential jet as part of the efforts to resource the Ghana Air Force. And I said forest reserve should be used for that because of this. No country is going to secure your country for you. No country has an interest in your country being secure. For example, the US may have an interest in stopping terrorism because it will affect them. So the US can help us to deal with terrorist attack and all that. But when it comes to securing our presidency, they do not have an interest in that. So they won't do it. That is why we need to take the initiative to secure our presidency and source our Air Force. This week, we are talking about changing the name of the airport to Accra International Airport because of nostalgic reasons. We also need to understand that for nostalgic reasons, Nkrumah took the Air Force very serious. He started the Air Force. At the time, Ghana had just 4 million people. Let's get the Air Force better. A presidential jet is part of the Air Force. That is something that I thought I should highlight as we are still in the week of talking about airports and airlines. Ghana is about to do an airline. Air Force goes with airline. We need that too. All these are part of conversations we need to be having. And that is the point of this video. Me highlighting the conversations that needs to be had about the security of the president of Ghana. Is there anything that I intended to talk about that I didn't? I wanted to compare Ghana's presidential jet, which breaks down every week, to other countries' jets. I didn't do that, but I'll end with this. The president of Nigeria travels around the world in a $100 million presidential jet that is over 15 years old. That is befitting for Nigeria because the president cannot even walk on his own 2 feet. But the president of Ghana has the energy to even save women from falling down. So the president of Ghana should not be traveling around the world on a 16-year-old presidential jet that breaks down every Kase market day. We deserve better as a country. My name is Nenebi Tony. I'm a Ghanaian writer who lives in the US, and subscribe to my channel if you like the issues I like to highlight on this channel. Ghana's foreign policy.